Thanks, Fritz and Stephen. And so now we have time for one special addition to the program. It's on your program, but it came late to us as an idea, and we wanted to squeeze it in because it's such an interesting example of media and also a strong point of view on how to use media most effectively. Greg Boustead from the Science Sandbox, which is a project of the Simons Foundation, is here with us to share a trailer for The Most Unknown, a film that was premiered recently at the Copenhagen Festival. And it's a really wonderful story of, I'll let Greg really tell you more about it, but exploring the far reaches of science. And Greg has a particular point of view on how we can use this film and many like it the most effectively, combining the power of philanthropy with and helping to reframe the way we distribute these great films. So we're going to see the trailer first, and Greg is going to come up and join us after.
How can I, as a small person, answer a question about the cosmos? You have a puzzle with 1 billion pieces, and we've got one piece.
So, why are we here?
The microbes that I study in hot springs are paramount to understanding where life could be in space.
You're trying to solve this problem. You know, I wake up at night thinking about it.
So you're a nerd too?
100% nerd.
We can speak from very different scientific disciplines and yet speak common language.
Oh my God!
Oh my God.
Welcome.
See if you can make a robotic hand move by your thoughts.
When you're right on the edge of this big unknown, it's very hard to say where the science is going to go next.
There must be things we cannot understand.
What makes you willing to search after something that we don't even really know exists?
It must be there. Come on.
Where do you get that, though?
Everybody's dream as a scientist is to make a big discovery, to truly advance the field. It's a quest for knowledge. It's a quest for understanding.
Dark matter, dark energy, there's something beyond, and we don't know yet what that is.
This is a tool to explore the center of the galaxy, essentially.
I think the important questions transcend beyond one laboratory.
We scientists are trying to discover the story of truth, like what's really out there.
Here, so we have no idea.
We have no idea.
Okay.
Hey guys, yeah, so I'm Greg, and what is that we just saw? Thank you. So that is The Most Unknown, which is essentially a feature documentary. It actually opens in theaters in the U.S. starting next week, and in other cities throughout the U.S. and Canada after that. But I'm not really here to talk about The Most Unknown, although come find me and I'll talk your ear off and you'll regret it. I want to talk about something much sexier, and that is distribution pipelines and negotiating rights. Let's see. This is a graph that makes no sense and for some reason has pancake-shaped objects, which for reasons I can't really explain, this is a recycled slide that I used for the last minute. The main point here is that when you make let's say a feature-length documentary film or a TV series or a hybrid, as many in this room know who have worked in that space, there's an increasing myriad of sort of touch points with audiences that you really have to keep in mind, and you have to come in with an ecosystem, whether it's, the feature in the festivals to get the reviews in the cinema, even though people don't go to cinemas anymore, the broadcast deals, both international and US, your SVOD partner is really your most increasingly important partner. That's your Hulus and your Netflix. But you also want to hit folks with free content, with webisodes, et cetera, and increasingly there are entire narratives that are released, as we've just seen, throughout social media. So for an impact, if you want to have impact with a film from a philanthropy perspective, you really want to hit all of those, and you want to go in with a plan. What happens, however, as again, many people who've made films and similar media, is increasingly you hit some blocks by big organizations that control those outlets. For instance, when you want to sell the film to Netflix, because you have to get everybody on Netflix, you find increasingly that they want all rights for 2 years and the universe. Literally, the contract says the universe. That gets increasingly difficult. So if you want to also have an education campaign where you're making it for free and you're providing screenings across universities or high school students, and you also want to make it free online in various formats, if you want to make a Snapchat narrative, often it'll be prohibitive to do that. So in this 1 minute presentation I'm doing here, it's really a conversation starters for those in the room, especially funders. We have the power, actually, to kind of blow all of this up. We've recently, so The Most Unknown is a co-production with Vice, co-created with Werner Herzog, and directed beautifully by Ian Chaney. And we had this piece of art that we knew would be of interest to Netflix, but we also knew that we wanted to create a digital series that lived, in 10-minute snappy chapters online at Vice, also broadcast on Viceland. We wanted to reach a very young, youth-oriented audience. We wanted to do all these things. So we essentially were able to make it, because we were able to invest and subsidize some of the returns that we needed to make, we were able to negotiate with Netflix, which we think is the first time where it's actually simultaneously going on Netflix, but it's also going to all these other critical places. And I don't think we would be able to negotiate that if it weren't mostly funded by a nonprofit. And so this is really, there's a lot of groaning in the industry right now about limitations in distribution channels and very few holding the power. I will say it's time for funders to kind of think more universally about this, and there are ways to unlock this model. And I think in many ways the nonprofits and the foundations in this room and beyond have a lot of that power. So this is really a silver lining in the overall daunting industry, that is that we can kind of shift this, I believe. And so that's really just a seed of hope that I'd like to plant as we go into the networking session. And if you do want to hear more about The Most Unknown, let me know. And you can also go to themostunknown.com, I believe, to get all the listings and other things. So thank you.
So we're about to go to a break, but I do want to just echo what Greg said. This is a very important problem that we often encounter. At the moment of the greatest potential impact for documentary film, it's held up in some arcane and anachronistic tie-up with a distribution channel where the theatrical release ends up clogging every other objective. We just had this with the perfect example of a community screening that any producers would kill for was not permitted by their distributors because of this holdup. There have been, I think, a couple of examples where people have gone in strong in the negotiations. Jeff Orlowski is someone we know well, who was able, in his most recent film, Chasing Coral, to go into the negotiations demanding that he had broader community screening rights, and he was able to hold firm, and Netflix went along with it, and so he had a lot of freedom in creating hundreds of community screenings with the approval of Netflix. So whether it's the producer or the philanthropic supporter, use the power that you have going in to help make sure that at the moment of the greatest potential impact of documentary film, that we are able to actually accomplish those objectives.